Hi, I'm Anita Sherman. I'm the community editor at the Fauquier Times, and today we are going to be taking a visit to the National Sporting Library and Museum in Middleburg, Virginia. The library over here, the museum is in the back. I'm very excited because as many times as I've been to Middleburg, passed right in front of this road, I've never stopped to see what's inside these buildings. We're going to be meeting with several representatives. John Connolly, he's in charge of the library. Francis Moreau is their events coordinator. I'm very excited to see what's inside because I've heard that there are some gorgeous paintings, a rare book collection that is just out of this world, and sculptures. So come along with me. Let's go inside.
So we can just go ahead and make it a little cooler and less damp in here. Hi, how are you folks?
Hi.
Hey, Francis.
Oh,
Times.
great to
Close one
meet
over
you.
here.
Nice to meet you.
I'm just
Mrs.
gonna do a
Sawyer.
quick walk around and then
Hi
we'll
there.
do rare books and stuff.
Yes.
Oh, very good.
Wow, this is lovely. This is wonderful because it's been here almost 65 years. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
54?
Yes, 1954 was the founding of the library. It was actually
So-
originally, it was in town in a small brick building, and it moved up here. It was in the basement of that wing of this building, which is a 1804 historic house called Vine Hill.
Okay.
And on the main floor and the top floor was the Chronicle of the Horse, which is now next door. It's a weekly, still weekly horse publication.
So now it was the library first?
Yes.
And then the museum?
Yes, the museum was added and opened in 2011.
And your collections are not, as I'm understanding it, they're not just from this area, they're from a broader area
No,
as
they're
well?
from a broader area.
That's what I thought, so that's what makes
so-
it even cooler.
yeah.
So it's not just local.
No, it's not
local-
just local.
It does include some local
Yes,
artists,
it definitely
but-
includes some local artists, and it includes people painting local landscapes. There are actually a couple of pieces that I can show you in our permanent collection that are very local. It's like Goose Creek and Hunting in the Blue Ridge. But actually the piece just here called Stillwater, this is actually part of our permanent collection, not part of the show. And that is by an English artist named Nick Fidian Green. He's contemporary. He does a lot of
It's wonderful.
horse heads.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so we have a broad range of time period. I can show you the oldest piece as well as some of the really recent stuff that we have. And so the oldest piece in the art collection is, I want to make sure I get this right, I think it's 17th century, but I can double check on the label. The oldest book we have is from 1523.
Oh my goodness.
So our library collection is about 20,000 objects. I know John will talk a little bit more about this. It's about 20,000 objects. It includes archival collections, over 5,000 rare books, a whole lot of historic periodicals. So as we were saying, the museum portion is much newer than the library portion. The museum has about 1,200 pieces of art in its permanent collection. And some of that, at least some of that, is on view at all times. So between shows we have more on view, and when shows are up, slightly less.
Alrighty.
But we can take a walk through
Sure.
the Sporting Vision, almost like a photograph. This is Andre Potter. He's a contemporary artist who does a lot of sporting art based in Kentucky, but originally he's Polish. And we actually had an exhibition of his work in the two large galleries last spring. So it opened in April of 2017.
Oh, this is nice.
Yeah, he's got really beautiful stuff.
We'll have to get a thing. Do you have prints of any of these?
Not for sale.
Not for sale. I just was curious. Look at them. Wow.
We had some when the exhibition was going on, but our
Sure.
shop is small. And then this is a piece, again, by a contemporary artist named Clarice Smith. We also had a large exhibition of her work. I want to say, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago at this point. But she actually lives in Washington, D.C. And she's not exclusively a sporting artist. She does a lot of different types of art. But I love this painting.
Yeah, she's really captured energy.
And it's really, this one's neat because of the leaf and the way it catches the light. You know, you get a really different perspective on it whenever you move. So one of the things that's really interesting about this show is that when these pieces were at VMFA, they were arranged chronologically, and they've sort of rethought how the show is put together. So here it's more by subject and genre, which gives you a different way of looking at them than they had been looked at before.
and how they sort of mute out the background, so the subjects in the foreground are getting all the attention. I'm sure that one of these paintings probably has a rider separated from his horse.
Oh yes, there's actually a whole series of those near the end.
Because that's part of the sport. Yeah, we were talking about the artistry of this sport on the way here in terms of the attire and the protocol and the ritual involved with it. I mean, it's got its own, certainly has all of its own history. Gee, these are stunning, Benjamin Marshall.
Yeah, you talk about people being
Here we
off.
go. Here's our separation.
There's one.
Yes, isn't this interesting? I wonder if this is, yes, obviously, all done by the same fellow.
Yeah. I know last year we had just over 10,000 visitors to the campus. And we started last April tracking visitor zip codes, where they're coming from. So from April to December of last year, we had people from 341 zip codes in 34 or 36 states and 13 foreign countries. So we were even surprised by that because we hadn't tracked it before, and we sort of find, oh, that's actually a lot. It's quite a broad range.
Yes, it's quite impressive.
And then digitally, we reach more people. We have a blog that comes out once a week, and last year it had over 13,000 views in 102 countries. So
I saw something on the blog.
Yeah. Drawing cover.
The drawing cover.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we actually have a printed book of some of the blogs that I can give you and direct you on the website where to
So I
find
wonder
more.
what this spaniel is playing.
It's nice to meet you.
This is Sawyer.
Hi, Sawyer. Thanks for coming out.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, so this was an activity we did this morning. We've got free art workshops happening every Friday in July, 10 to noon. So at 10, we had like 20 kids.
I saw them. I've actually been putting some of these in the calendar. These because
fun.
you've got them.
Yes.
You know, this is just very, very cool that you're
Good.
doing
I'm
this.
glad that you like it.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun. We've done summer art camps in the past, but this way we've spread out the activity so more families can participate, and I think it's going to be really successful.
And I've got to put it on my bucket list. The sketching on Sundays.
Yeah. Sunday Sketch, so we have a free session once a month, the first Sunday of every month, and we partner with local artists in the community. So each sketch is actually led by professional artists, professional, local, and regional artists.
Are you sketching things obviously around here or inside the museum?
In the museum, predominantly inside the museum, so each artist will choose a particular couple of works that maybe inspire them, and then they'll sketch based on that. We've also had some artists use the landscape here around the museum, our sculptures, our outdoor features. The last artist we had just this past Sunday focused on the skies and the trees in the backgrounds of a lot of our paintings. So not always sketching the horse that's in the painting, but looking at other aspects of the pieces that you might not think of.
So these programs, have they been, are they relatively new offering?
There's a spread. So Sunday Sketch, this is the third year that we're doing Sunday Sketch, and it's really, starting to get its own audience.
What's
and it's
about an
dedicated.
average number that might come to one of those?
About a dozen to 15.
Okay.
This past one was closer to 20 to 24. It was very well attended. I think summertime we see a lot more kids come out to do a fun summertime activity, but about a dozen is the usual number. And then this is, like I said, this is our first year doing the summer art workshops. So we have a range in terms of how long some of the programs have been here.
Sure, but it seems like it's kind of a nice length for this one. I saw it. I don't even know if it's an hour.
It's 10 to 12, but it's just a drop-in program. So folks are encouraged to just come in, do the program.
Do it, and then
if you show your artwork at the front desk, you get free admission.
Oh, there you
for your
go.
family to go look at other,
Okay.
paintings and artworks that we have in the museum. So it's a great way to get them do your own artwork and then see what's on
So
view.
you have these programs for children, and you have the sketch. I know you have other gallery talks as well.
Yep, gallery
so-
talks are every Wednesday at 2, and again, that's all audiences, all ages, and it's just a 30-minute tour with either myself or one of the curators. Each talk is different, so you're always going to hear maybe a backstory behind one of the paintings or one of the characters in the paintings, or maybe it will be more artistically thematic in terms of how do artists use foreground, midground, and background in different ways to show
See, that
depth.
that's very interesting, because in some of the paintings we were seeing clearly the background is this kind of muted,
Yes, a
just like
very
almost like a drape, and then you've got
dramatic
this,
wash, and then a
you've
very
got-
stark
right, almost
person.
like a photograph, and they're
Yes.
amazing. They're beautifully done.
Yes, yes. So there are all different, topics that we discuss, and it's really meant to just be an informal way to interact with the
Sure.
artwork
and a way
see some of
to
the staff.
spread the word about the facility too, because again, I mean, I was telling John and Francis that I've been to Middleburg several times and driven by here, and it's beautiful building.
It's
Just
beautiful.
Didn't realize
Right,
what was
exactly,
here.
and
It's
it
amazing.
can, and the building itself can seem intimidating. This big brick facade on top of the hill, and so what we really try and do is give. No one has an excuse not to, come and see us and say hi. So we have all of these free
Ways to
programs like
engage.
gallery talks and Sunday sketch and the free art workshops that we do.
And you've got concerts.
And we have the concerts as well, and then we also do more scholarly talks and things. If you're interested in, the research behind land conservation
Sure.
in fox hunting areas, or if you're interested in the history of a particular artist. Next week, we're doing a talk with Jeffrey Allison from the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts about Paul Mellon, who collected all of the artwork that's on view. So there are many tiers, of programs we have. So there's always something for somebody.
Well, it's wonderful. This has been very enjoyable.
Good,
I
good. I'm
appreciate
glad
it.
you're enjoying it.
Thank you so much. This has been great. Super.
This is our founders room where we do a lot of our educational programming and events. And this gentleman is
Is John.
John. Yes, John Connolly. He's our George L. Orstrom Jr. head librarian.
Hi,
She's a
Anita
head
Sherman. Nice
Pleased
to
to
meet
meet
you.
you.
John, and this is Sawyer.
of
Hello.
this be filmed.
So our library was founded in the personal library of George Orstrom Sr., who's here in the red livery. He owned a home in Connecticut. He had a home here in Northern Virginia. From what I understand, he traveled a lot as well. He was a pilot in World War I, and I was credited with the final kill of World War I in the air. And the idea for a research library on equestrian sport was something that he worked on from the beginning, as well as Alexander McKay Smith, who's in the other portrait on the other side.
Okay.
Mr. Orstrom passed away about 18 months after the library was founded. He died in 1956. And his son, George Orstrom Jr., picked up the torch and kind of carried it forward and was the driving force behind our organization for the next 50 years. And really was the cause for a lot of what you see here today. So during the 50s, 60s, 70s, Chronicle of the Horse was owned by the Orstroms. It was an Orstrom publication. So they were publishers of it. And during a lot of that time period, Alexander McKay Smith was the editor
I
for
remember that.
Chronicle. And there was a very, very close relationship between our organizations. In 1969, this parcel was purchased. The old family home, Vine Hill, which is the 1804 federal structure.
Right, which is over
It's
there,
the older
connected to
portion
the
of the museum.
okay, connected to the museum.
That was both headquarters for Chronicle of the Horse and the library at the same time for the next 30 years. So from 1969 till about late 1998, there was some division of Vine Hill between those two entities. So at first, top two floors were Chronicle offices, and then the library was in the basement, and they had like a closed vault that they would, fireproof vault that they'd bring the books in and out of. By the end of that time, the library had continued to grow, and the main floor and the basement were the library, and then the top floor was Chronicle offices. And literally the library outgrew the space.
Sure.
In 1994, one of the library's board members, John Daniels, gave his 5,000 volume book collection to the library, and that necessitated moving out of.
I was just about to ask you how many volumes were in here, and I'm sure you would get to that. But so it's got to be 5,000 plus then.
Oh, yes. Up here in our main reading room, we have 12,000 volumes. Just under
so
12,000
12,000.
volumes. Just in this room. And then we're currently going through an inventory and counting up what we have in our rare collections. And then we have 81 archival collections. We don't have a count archivally of object by object. We go down to the folder level. There's about 3,000 folders of material in our archives. And then we're probably about 6,000 or 7,000 volumes down in the rare books as well. So we're definitely over 23,000 volumes.
And does this work like a regular library in terms, can people come and check these books out, or are
People
they
can
using
come
them
and
here?
use them here. It's a reference library. It's a
Oh, it's
research
a reference,
library. Yeah,
reference
it's
and
not
research. Okay,
it's a
so
research
not a
library.
borrowing library.
It's not a lending library, except through the Interlibrary Loan system. We will lend on a restricted basis to local public and university libraries. We lend all over the country that way. The restriction on it is that you have to access them there in the library. You can't take them home. So it's the same rules there as they were here. It's in the library only.
Sure.
But we do between 100 and 200 interlibrary loans every year, all over the United States. So here on the lower level, it's restricted access for now. We do want to reopen the lower level at some point. But for now, it is restricted access while we're working on the collections. Historic periodicals, the entire periodical back file, and our rare book room. And I did not bring my key with me, so I'll borrow Erica's. Come on in. It's a bit cold, but that's deliberate. Okay. So some of the things I wanted to show you while you're here.
That's fine. I was going to say repair. Do you do your own repair?
We
here?
don't.
Do you
We contract
because
those
I know
out.
that there's services that do book repair.
Yeah, we're working with 3 different conservators right now. We do a book adoption program once a year where people can come and pay the cost of getting the book repaired. It's the lowest cost repairs are about $75 a book, going up to a few $100s per
Sure,
volume.
I would imagine, yeah.
But it's kind of an easier entry point, I think, for a lot of people. When they do the repairs, this one, there is a commemorative plate that's put in them.
That's very special.
So this one, the front board had detached. You can
So
actually
this is
see
a repaired
This is a
one.
repaired book.
Okay.
So you can see the darker green leather. That's all new. So we've got some very good repair work that's done, and we're very happy with the conservation work that we've contracted for. These are this is Thomas Campbell's poetry. This is a pocket Bible. 1839. They printed the whole thing very small.
Come on, what point size is that?
It's small.
Yeah, I know it's so
small.
I was gonna say,
I can barely read it. This is an almanac. It's the Gentleman's Diary or Mathematical Almanac. And none of these are sporting books. But the reason why they're here is they're 4-edge books, which means that they have a painting hidden in them. And the painting is sporting painting.
And why was that done?
It's decorative. It was done at home. It was just something that people did. It's a British fad.
Oh, that's amazing.
And you can't see it at all unless you know to look for it.
Well, where is it?
It is...
Is John going to show it to us?
Here.
Oh my gosh. Are you getting this? This is amazing. How did they do this?
So there's a special clamp that clamps the book down like so.
And then somebody has painted
And then they
this
did a watercolor painting.
while it was clamped.
While it was
like
clamped.
this.
And then when it dries, you release the clamp and you take it to your bookbinder and they gild over the tip of the page. So the tip of the page is gilds and your painting lives on the top of the page. So as you're leafing through, you will see tiny little bits of paint.
Sure.
And that's where your painting lives.
And
but when the
what
book
was-
is shut,
okay, what
it's
was this
completely...
called again when
It's
they
called
did-
Fore-edge.
Fore-edge.
F-O-R-E, that front edge of the block.
And who came up with that idea?
It's just something that starts in the 1820s, 1830s, and
What
kind of
a
continues
clever
through
thing.
to the well, there's still a couple of artists that do it today. in
Oh,
Europe.
really?
But it's kind of one of those odd arts, decorative arts that people did, and then it kind of tails off
That
with World
is,
War One.
this is, thank you. I was not aware. Look at this. Look at this.
This is a falconry scene.
And
Lady
what's,
and
you know, what's
gentlemen are out
interesting,
hawking.
what's interesting about these images is that when we were looking at a lot of the paintings upstairs in the gallery, this same kind of,
This
you
is
know,
a
this same
very
kind of-
popular
yes.
Henry Alkin print from the 1830s.
right. I mean, what they're wearing and, you know, illustrate and all this.
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder how long it took them to paint one of those. That's
Some of them are very detailed. So like this one is one of the reasons I grabbed this one. All of this whole set here is
They're all
all Fore-edge. This whole shelf, and that whole shelf are Fore-edge books.
And the thing is, if you didn't know to look for it, you could have one of these books and not know that this was there.
That is true.
Oh my gosh.
There's a fox
look
hunt.
At this. Oh, this is amazing.
Very detailed.
Look how detailed that is.
Now ours are unusual that they're Fore-edge books that depict sport. Fore-edge typically are architectural landmarks. They're castles, bridges,
Sure.
cathedrals, or they're religious iconography. And ours, we do have one here that's unusual even among Fore-edge books. This is Thomas Beckford's Thoughts Upon Fox Hunting, and it has a fox hunting Fore-edge painting on it. And you almost never see Fore-edge paintings that relate to the content of the book.
I am just totally intrigued with these. This is amazing. And what I'm wondering is, for the untrained, which clearly I would be, if you got one of these books, is there any kind of little clue that tells you it's a Fore-edge?
The fact that that front edge is gilt.
Ah, okay.
That's usually
that's a
gilding the
tip.
tip of the page is done just on the top of the block, not on the bottom or on the
Is
Fore-edge.
that, is that
So that's
also protective in a way, or does that have anything to
It's
do?
just purely decorative.
It's purely
Yeah.
decorative.
It's purely decorative. If you're looking for a kind of book that might be, it's other tells would be smaller books. They're shorter. They're called octavo size because of the number of times you would fold the pages down when making the book. That's 8 times as opposed to 4.
So this was prevalent in like the early 1800s, is that
I
what
would
you
say
were saying?
mid 1800s to the late 1800s.
And then
So
is there a period where it dies out,
it
or
starts
was
to tail off with World War One. And some of the things that we have here are unique, like this one. This is completely unique. It's from our manuscripts collection. And it is a family ledger book that details all of their horse and carriage expenditures.
And you can touch this without having gloves on.
I can.
Okay.
You need clean, dry hands. With the gloves on, you run the risk of tearing pages. Much higher risk
Okay.
there. So unless there's deteriorating leather damage, we don't use the gloves. So there are certain things that we would use the gloves for.
you can- okay,
But
okay.
not for the most part, not for anything that I've got here on the tour.
Look at this.
This is,
Sure, it's a ledger. It's
yeah, it's a
keeping
stable
track
ledger.
of-
This is kept out in the barn. It's in French. We do not know the name of the family.
And of course, these amounts are obviously in francs, probably.
Nope, it's before francs.
Oh, before
This is
francs.
1758.
Oh,
so the
okay.
currency is the livre.
Livre.
The livre is the silver currency of the day. Let me
And
find
look,
a good page.
imagine the pen they had to do this.
Yep.
What a nice little quill. Oh, this is amazing.
Let me move forward.
This is
some
such a
here.
history in itself.
Yes.
Because it's chronicling the day by day. 17.
Yes.
Wow. Wait
Now-
a second. This is before. Wait. This is.
It's before the French Revolution.
Yes,
Mhm.
and this
It's
is
actually
this
before the
is-
French and Indian Wars.
And this is
complete.
before way before Paul Revere's ride. I'm making these weird
So
associations.
we know that they are they live near Paris because these entries here, Le Maréchal is coming from Versailles. The Maréchal is the farrier. Farriery today means caring for horses' feet
Sure.
and the hooves. But before about 1800, farriery was all equestrian care. So it was your vet coming. Very expensive.
I was going to say, some of these amounts are,
Most of the
wonder-
entries are for hay and oats.
okay, for
So
feeding them.
yeah, but there's also entries for leather to repair saddles and tack. There's entries for paint because they repainted their carriages every year. And of course the farrier, he costs 150 livres for his visit. Your day laborer in Paris makes that amount his entire year. That's one visit for their farrier. This is their yearly total for this year, 3,906 livres. That's an astronomical sum. But France loses the French and Indian War. French economy begins to slide. And later, in 1761, they are spending half that amount. And by the end of the book, there's a second set of handwriting that is helping with the general edition. Different entries by 1765.
And I can't remember if you shared if this whole book has been translated.
It has not been
It has
translated.
not.
The entire
It
thing has
hasn't.
not been translated, but we
Okay.
do anticipate getting this one
Getting that.
scanned into the online platform. We just received a grant to begin the process of
And tell
of
me
moving
again
forward
how you acquired
digitization.
this.
This is one of the few things that we raised funds for and
Oh,
then
I
went
see.
and purchased.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's bound in vellum. This would have been a very, very informal binding during its time period. Today, vellum's fancy binding, but back then it was not. And the paper is actually in very good condition. It's linen paper, so cast-off bed linens most likely. This is before they invented bad paper. So preserving, from a preservation standpoint, this is very easy. And speaking of bad paper,
You've got some fantastic show-off pieces in here.
yes.
I know.
This is also from the manuscripts collection. This is called Riding to Hounds on Long Island by Theodore
By
Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt, of course. Oh,
And this is
my.
the original handwritten manuscript with edits and corrections on his notepaper. Brought back later, a collector had it bound in this red Morocco leather. But you can see it was folded
And if
into
I'm
thirds at one point.
remembering correctly, I mean, he visited this area. I'm pretty sure.
He visited a lot of the eastern seaboard, for sure, and then out west, of course, as well.
We just ran an article in the paper about when the presidents came to town, and I'm pretty sure it mentioned that Roosevelt had.
Right,
had
and
been
we're not
through
that
the
far
area.
from DC.
No. This would have been certainly
So
riding
it's
to hounds on Long Island.
It's an article he wrote in July of 1886 for this piece, which I don't take out of the box anymore. You can see it's flaking to bits
Yeah.
because the wood pulp paper printing press was invented in the 1870s.
July 1886.
Yep, he's the first article
In there.
in this magazine, and that's this. And it's a controversy about, well, it's a general treatise on fox hunting and its virtues, but he terms it Riding to Hounds deliberately because in the busy life of 1886, gentlemen don't have time anymore to go out into the countryside and hope to find a real fox. So what they're doing is drag hunting, where they take a scent pack.
And that's back in 1886. Fast forward
Yes.
to where fox hunting is
Yeah.
today. Okay.
Yeah. So they're drag hunting already on Long Island because they've got to know they're going to get their exercise in on a Sunday or Saturday.
Okay.
And they want to get their good gallop in, he says. But he's also talking about whether or not this is too British a sport for Americans, whether it's good for people to be out riding to
this.
hounds. And he talks generally about the virtues and value of it. He says, first of all, just because you don't like the British doesn't necessarily mean what they're doing is bad. But second, he does go into the fact that the American tradition is very, very different from the British tradition for fox hunting. And the American tradition goes back to George Washington and Lord
Sure.
Fairfax, who hunted
Sure.
fox in Virginia. And third, he says it's excellent cavalry training. And he actually attributes the success of the Confederate cavalry in the Civil War to the fox hunting tradition the South enjoyed.
That's so interesting because there's a lot written about even the differences between the horses in the North and the South, how they were cared for,
Right.
their stamina, all of that. That's kind of a
Right.
whole study or area of interest in itself. So that's
Right.
that's interesting that he was. Now I'm going to have to get a copy of this. I know there's copies of this that you can get. His Riding to Hounds.
It's possible. I don't know. I haven't looked.
Okay.
But I haven't
It'd be
looked,
so
but you would have to
fascinating to
find
read.
it in one of these, a copy of one of these. And I've got
Now be careful. You don't
beneath
wanna-
it, I have a second copy of that printed.
Look how tiny they did everything. Good Lord. Well, we have had an amazing, inspirational visit today to the National Sporting Museum and Library located in Middleburg, Virginia. We've had a fantastic look at the rare finds that are in the library down in the basement. There's very cool stuff down there, and also the museum. So we hope that you enjoy this and will join us on another one of our adventures soon.